Can a trust save you money on taxes? The answer might surprise you, and stick around till the end to see if it can. So, today we're talking about if a trust can really save you money on taxes, or if that's just something state attorneys and influencers say to scare you into spending tens of thousands of dollars for a pretty little binder and a bunch of papers that you don't know what they mean. The truth is that some trust absolutely can save you money on taxes. It just depends on what type of taxes you're talking about and what kind of trust we're talking about. Trust can save you time and headaches in probate, but other trusts, they do nothing for you at all except give you a false sense of security, or worse, set you up for a bad ending in an audit. Today, I'm unpacking which trusts actually save money, who needs them, and how people are being sold the wrong kinds of protections. My name's Anthony Brister, and I'm a tax and asset protection attorney, and you're listening to the Wealth Planning Podcast with Brister Law. I've seen it over and over and over again. Smart, successful people with six-figure incomes who think they're being tax savvy by downloading a DIY revocable trust from the internet, thinking it's going to give them asset protection, slash their estate tax, or protect them from Uncle Sam. But here's the dirty secret: Revocable Living Trust do not save you a dime in taxes. They do have a purpose, but asset protection and tax savings aren't it. Their purpose is to avoid probate. And irrevocable trusts do not save you money on federal income taxes. If someone is pitching this to you, run. So let's go back to the trust that everyone gets and why it's not for taxes. But most people should consider this trust, and it's the Revocable Living Trust. The Revocable Trust, I like to think of it like a suitcase. You pack your assets into it, so when you pass, your family doesn't have to go through airport security or probate. It's all about avoiding probate. So the Revocable Trust keeps things private. They make sure your assets go where you want them to without the delay or drama. They're incredible for control, organization, and privacy. But let me be clear, it does nothing to lower your tax bill. Why? Because it's revocable, you still own everything inside of it for tax purposes. So if you're over the estate tax exemption, or again, if your revocable trust owns your assets, the IRS sees the trust and says, nice binder, but you still owe us. Now, let me tell you this: most people aren't going to owe an estate tax under current law. If you're single and you have less than 13 million in assets, or if you're married and you have less than 26 million in assets, you don't have to worry about the federal estate tax right now. But if you are around these areas or total net worth, and your goal is to reduce estate tax, you might need to look into an irrevocable trust. But let me say this again: an irrevocable trust is not going to save you in federal income tax. Irrevocable trusts are different. I like to think of them maybe as shipping containers, but once you load them up and seal the door, you're no longer control what's inside directly, and you can't get it back out. Because of this, you get to remove these from your taxable estate. So some common irrevocable trusts that we use for people are irrevocable life insurance trusts, or ILITs. These are great for keeping large life insurance payouts out of your estate. Spousal lifetime access trust, or SLOTs. where one spouse gifts assets to a trust where the other one can still benefit from it. And then we've got intentionally defective grantor trusts, or IDGITs. It's a mouthful, but a powerful way to freeze assets, values, and gift growth to your heirs. Now, these tools can reduce your estate tax burden, especially for those families whose net worth have crossed over that 10, 20, or $30 million mark, and they're trying to preserve generational wealth. But, and this is critical, they're not for everyone. So, who actually needs an irrevocable trust? If you're listening and thinking, should I have one of these? Maybe, but probably not. Here's the rule of thumb I use with clients. If your net worth is under 10 million as an individual, or 20 million as a couple, you likely don't have an estate tax problem yet. If you're not planning on giving assets away today, or if you're not comfortable losing control, an irrevocable trust may complicate your life more than it helps. They come with rules, restrictions. You can't just pull the money back, and there's no undo button. So while they can be powerful, most people need to consider it and look for guidance before jumping into them. Think of these as high-performance vehicles. They can be amazing in the right hands, but dangerous without training. And let me be clear, irrevocable trusts are powerful tools when used properly, but right now there's a wave of misinformation being pushed by people who have no legal training, no fiduciary duty, and in some cases, no idea what they're talking about. You've probably seen it online. Use this trust, pay no federal income tax. We've got a patented trust. We've got a loophole that the IRS can't touch. It's all legal. Just ask the other guy. This is a bulletproof trust. Set up an irrevocable trust, declare an extraordinary dividend, and never pay taxes again. This is an exclusive trust that the rich use. Let me stop you right there. Not only is this wrong, it's dangerous. And here's the truth most of these trust peddlers won't tell you, is the irrevocable trusts do not get you out of paying federal income tax. In fact, irrevocable trusts, when structured improperly, are used as tax shelters, actually hit harder than individuals on the income tax side. The IRS applies a compressed tax bracket to most non-grantor irrevocable trusts. All this means is by the time you earn $15,000 in a trust, it's already being taxed at the highest federal rate of 37%. That's not a loophole, that's a trap. And let's talk about this so-called extraordinary dividend strategy. It's a buzzword floating around in these tax avoidance, really tax evasion chambers. And what they're telling you is if you structure your trust in a certain way, get your income in there, you can receive a dividend, but because it's an extraordinary dividend under a misinterpreted tax code, the trust is a taxpayer and it doesn't have to pay the federal tax. This is looking at one section of the code in a vacuum and applying it incorrectly, and it's just plain wrong. The IRS has entire teams, literal promoter audit units designed to sniff out these strategies, and they've been cracking down on abusive trust arrangements where income is artificially routed or disguised and misclassified. And in some cases, these aren't just disallowed, there's actually criminal liability. And here's what really gets me fired up. Many of these promoters aren't licensed attorneys. They're not licensed fiduciaries. They're salespeople selling secrecy, fear, and false promises in fancy binders, and they're nowhere to be found 3 to 5 years later when you get that audit. They prey on high-income earners, business owners who are trying to do the right thing and plan, but they don't know how to verify the pitch. They're mixing just enough truth with some mumbo jumbo and legal jargon to make it sound credible. And then they're handing you a tax bomb with a 3 to 5 year fuse. So let's wrap up this segment with some clarity. If you're considering an irrevocable trust, make sure you ask, what is the purpose of this trust? And if the answer is to avoid income tax, you're likely being sold a fantasy, not a legitimate strategy. Most well-designed irrevocable trusts are meant to reduce estate tax, remove assets from your taxable estate, or shield assets from lawsuits and Medicaid spin down, not to bypass the federal income tax. And if someone's promising a way to eliminate income tax altogether using a trust, especially one that involves reclassifying dividends, loss harvesting without substance, or complex offshore references, run. Do not walk, run. And if you're a business owner, real estate investor, or just someone trying to get your financial life together, a revocable trust might be your foundation, but remember, it's not for taxes. It's to avoid probate, provide clarity and protection for your family. And if you're building towards a high net worth and want to prepare early, start planning now so you can make small moves that pay off later. But if you're already in that high net worth category, yes, you should absolutely talk about using irrevocable trusts, advanced gifting, family entity structures to legally shrink your estate and pass more to your heirs. But you want to be sure you're talking to the right professional and you're doing it for the right reason. I had a client come to me last year. He was a physician, a brilliant guy, but he paid $25,000 to an online influencer for an estate plan. It came in a beautiful leather binder. It was about 120 pages. And he said to me, I was told this would help lower my taxes, give me asset protection. But the problem was, first off, it was a revocable trust. And then second, it didn't provide any asset protection or tax savings, and he had never funded the trust. So he had a $12 million net worth with no real planning in place for his estate or his heirs. We ended up scrapping that binder, starting fresh with a strategy that actually worked for his wealth level. And if there's one thing that I want you to take from today's episode, it's this. A trust can save you on taxes, but not every trust does. The right plan depends on your net worth, your goals, and your willingness to give up control. And doing nothing is the most expensive decision of all. If you're unsure whether you need a revocable or an irrevocable trust, or if you've been sold something that doesn't actually work for your goals, or you think that kind of sounds funny now, let's talk. Head over to bristertaxlaw.com, schedule your free discovery call, and let's build a real strategy that protects your legacy, maximizes your wealth, and aligns with what matters the most to you. And don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, share this with someone who thinks they're protected, because the truth is, the wrong trust won't save you, but the right one, it can change everything.